It's Sunday, January 23rd, 2022. I sat with Linda and Lou this morning. I don't always watch Sunday morning. Sometimes I catch pieces of it, sometimes I don't catch any of it. But this morning I sat with Linda and Lou and I watched the program of whatever they were trying to communicate. There's something about a fountain pen, not this type of pen, but a different type of pen in a shop that was in Manhattan. There used to be 14. There's only one left. So they aired that piece. And it really goes by, and then after Sunday morning, it segues to this thing called Face the Nation. And this morning, inside of that program, it says Listening to America. And they have on, she says they use something called a Zoom, Zoom, where they have displays of faces that are speaking that are Americans, or so the program says. I have no way of knowing. And so they're asking, oh, that is incredibly bright. They're asking these folks, or these random participants of some sort, for their feedback in the management loop of whatever's been going on. I hear through their participation with her and some larger conversation, some interesting dynamic. There were several gentlemen of significance in this piece, but on this particular episode, but one of the gentlemen says something, and then that thought opened up an even broader thought for myself, because they're all like different segments and pieces that normally I wouldn't think intersect, but today they were woven in just the proper way that it makes you think of. Oh, he said something about Putin. Putin has a calculus, which I thought interesting, based on the Top Gun reference and some other visual whatever that they threw at me this morning on this particular program. For like calcaneus to work, you would need certain calculus. That goes back to the constellations and the stars and the planet. Being that I know this section of the planet is off, not by any other feature other than the original person and family member I belong to was taken out of the school in New York, and I'm not, still to this day, follow up in calculation, I'm not with him. Keep it simple. I was born in the spot, in the stars, in the star programming, in the skies. Somewhere in the 90s, somebody hit my father with a federal lawsuit that took away his business and ability to provide for his family, and it was under the disguise of blue sky laws. BLUESKYLAWS. So that cherry tree, or that apple tree, it's the apple tree that got chopped down by I don't know what, while George Washington is trying to chop down cherry trees, supposedly, allegedly. But in real life, my father got hit with some lawsuit and lost his ability to provide with his principal license and his stock brokerage firm. So that's real action that was taken by humans against my family, while this devastating consequence has been atrocious consequence, has been quantifiably chased by I don't know what level of humans, aliens, or monsters. But the facts are, for benefactor, I arrived to Linda and Lou, born Linda and Lou. I had a set family member who introduced themselves for marriage. He then was taken, I don't know how or why or where. And I am still, in this day, in this year, 2022, without him. Whomever it is that originally came for me, that I belong to. In the interim, INTERM, Lewis had a business, some form or some level of human, did some court, COURT process for a little guy, little fish, and took away his ability. And then took, in the interim also, I still have not been able to keep and hold the family member, the one and only that I was set for in cosmological. So the calculation and the formula is for certain off at levels of out of the small talk arena. I can verify for certain that I know I have a designated family member that I belong to and that I was destined for. And I know that he's been withheld from me and I've been withheld from him. Why? I cannot be certain. Something to do with humans. Here's what the humans have to say on teleportation device this morning about how their last year with their manager, the President of the United States of America, Joe Biden, and his administration. This is what they're saying.
The 6 of them. Who feels like we are in a better place now than we were a year ago? Show of hands. No one believes we're in a better spot now.
Unfortunately, I don't think that our public servants are actually, they're kind of on a lag with the science. I was not vaxxed, had COVID, I didn't even know I had it. I had the sniffles for 2 days and body aches. And if I hadn't lost my sense of smell, I wouldn't have known the difference. It's clearly not as horrible as perhaps it was described. For some it has been, and I'm very sorry for that. But for a lot of us who do take care of ourselves and everything and are younger, we need to go in and live our lives. And public science has not caught up with that yet.
Here's another thing. While I've been withheld from the family member that I was designated for and that let me know that he exists, the everyday speak sounds like this, but I was having like a quiet prayer moment by myself this morning in meditation of whatever I do, and or whatever, and it dawned on me. I'm like, you know what freedom is? I was like, define freedom for yourself. I was like, right, freedom would be, I want to get up today and I want to go skiing so I can get to the mountain somehow with a car, with equipment, with money in my pocket, and I can go skiing for the day. That's freedom. I want to go ice skating. Great. Get up, get dressed in the appropriate gear, and you go ice skating. That's freedom. I don't have that in America. You know what my Sunday morning looks like? It looks like donated clothes that I've been wearing for several days in a row, that I put on and take off, like whatever, and then wash and then put right back on. It looks like I sit and I wait for the day to end so I can go to sleep so this miserable life just washes away. For a couple of times during the day, as long as the weather withholds and so does my body, I'll go out for a walk on the boulevard. Try to notice whatever, keep myself occupied and busy, attention span wise. But that's what this disgusting adventure to humanity feels like and looks like. There's no freedom. There's no purpose. There's no fiscal ability. There's no leisure. There's no enjoyment. There's no planning something spectacular and being able to obtain it. There's none of that. There's Linda, Lou, a couple of like really boring small talk conversations, trying to avoid them completely, and then going out, and in the interim, taking care of my son if he needs something. That's all this is. But being able to actually have freedom, we don't have any of that. Just so the United States of America and the state of New York are very crystal clear when speaking on planetary issues for one purpose.
How many people know someone who has died from COVID or been hospitalized with COVID? So, Mildred, you raised your hand there. Do you have a different perspective when you hear the descriptions of saying it's not that bad?
I don't know anybody who died, by the way. I was trying to put the volume up.
It's not that bad. I think it is bad. I think this whole country is suffering from COVID fatigue at this point.
I don't know why my camera is picking this light up differently.
Confusing and depressing. I'm an elderly person myself and a cancer survivor. And that's one of the reasons why I went ahead and took the vaccine and the booster.
You originally told us.
Now, this brings up a really interesting conversation. I know that in certain countries, areas, or territories, they're not allowed to have vaccines. They're not allowed to have shots. One way that you know, since this territory, as soon as you're born, they shoot you with something. For whatever reason. In New York State, at least. So now there are people that have entered New York State and the United States of America, being North America, that were completely unvaccinated. But I arrived here first and was vaccinated at some point. So now is this COVID thing all of the people that were supposed to be removed or corrected or whatever you do in moving machine mechanics based on the wrong speculation, the wrong formula, the wrong calculations for so long and then arguing over it. Just curious, is this conversation and the fact that now, like Kamala Harris said, like 210 million Americans are now vaccinated, right? You're just curious. Is that to then get a shot in their arm and a tracker in their arm? Because are they trying to change the conversation? Because for so long, we had a gap in an argument, and one of the settling agents was to put a vaccine in. But now this has put a damper on that. So I'm just curious. Is this considered democracy, republic, or anarchy? I'm just an independent, observing what the humans are saying and just have a few questions since my entire planet was removed and things haven't worked out well and I need to get back to him.
A year or so ago that you didn't want to be a guinea pig. You had concern about taking the vaccine. What changed your mind?
A lot of my friends who had gone ahead and taken the vaccine and I saw where they had done well. And I want to be around. You know, there's never any guarantee, but I want to be around to see my grandkids.
So why don't you think, now that you have that tool in your disposal, why don't you think we're in a better place?
But I don't know if we are in a better place as a country. We're still very divided on this whole COVID thing.
Go ahead, Joe.
I was of the opinion that when people got vaccinated, they would let their guard down. They would go out and congregate. And I'm a football fan, and it makes my skin.
Wait, they let their guard down. Now, is that the problem I'm having in New Jersey, where I don't know what nation put their guard down on the ground, like boots on the ground in the state of New Jersey, because they're working now with the vaccination things, handling this COVID and this like mass plague and kill off, apparently, but held within the hospitals. I have nothing to do with it. I'm just independently observing and listening to the humans and exactly the words they're saying.
My skin crawl when I watch the games and I see so many people together, because that's exactly what it did. They got vaccinated. They thought,
Is
we're
this
fine.
part
They
of
can go out
germ
and do what
warfare
we call it.
games
And
and
that's the thing.
psychological games that
Now, I'm
these
not vaccinated,
humans are
but I would
playing?
dream of not wearing a mask. The things that I see going on in America, it makes my skin crawl because people think we're out of the woods and we're not.
So when you hear President Biden say this is a pandemic of the unvaccinated, Jill, do you feel like he's talking about you?
Not at all. Not at all, because I work with someone who's vaccinated and has had the booster, and they've had COVID 3 times. So I'm not buying that.
Jorge, you are nodding your head in full agreement with Jill.
Oh, 100%. I think that's part of the problem that we've had is the misinformation. Actually, studies have already shown that cloth masks are not effective at all.
That's right. The quality of your mask. The quality of your mask matters a lot.
Quality of the mask, and they didn't say that at first. They said, "Oh, just wear a mask and you'll be fine." So I think when your leader is saying one thing and then it's not true, you begin to question that. People that don't want to get vaccinated have their own reasons, and I don't think it.
This goes into another set of arguments and conversations that scare me outside of the reason why. I'm just looking for my purpose. I'm looking for the planet that disappeared out of my solar system. This is just circumstances going on around the same time. I mean, I arrived to a crime scene. This is just part of the stuff that's been in progress since I've been here.
I don't think it has anything to do with President Trump.
And to your point, former President Trump has gotten vaccinated and boosted, he says. So he has now endorsed it. But Chelsea, jump in here. How are you feeling? Are you feeling more confident these days?
No, not really. I'm still worried about getting sick. You know, I'm fully vaxxed. I got my booster. I wear my mask. But I agree, like, the messaging has been really confusing. And I don't blame people at all who haven't gotten vaccinated, because the story was the pandemic will be over. But the truth of the matter is people do still get sick even though they're vaccinated. So I think that things are just as bad as they were when the pandemic started.
And Jorge, walking into the classroom, you were concerned as a teacher about getting exposed. I mean, do you feel like the safety guidelines for classrooms are clearly communicated?
In Texas, we are. We don't wear masks. You don't have to get a vaccine. You can get a vaccine if you want. It's you take care of yourself. And that's how it should be. You have got to have your own personal convictions and you follow them. If you choose not to get vaccinated, then you're choosing to live with those consequences.
The things that I've done thus far, it's protected me, and I've not gotten sick. And if I do, that's something I have to live with. But just right now, I just feel like I have a choice, and my choice is just to not do it.
We are a year into unified Democratic control of the House, of the Senate, of the executive branch. Do you feel any differently? Do you feel that Washington
So now she's just said all three branches of the government have been compromised. I mean, that's essentially what she just said. My planet's missing. And all three, how does that work out on calculus and formula? Just curious.
Understands what all of you are experiencing out there. Beth is shaking her head no. I mean, so many of you are. But have you always felt that way? Or is there a new level of sort of skepticism about Washington?
Yeah, I think so. I really had such high hopes for this administration when they came in. And it's just been one disaster after another. Afghanistan, inflation, take your pick. I just don't understand. I thought this was going to be a president for the people.
Now, is inflation where they put their guard down, meaning other people's nations of guardsmen and more educated or more intertwined newbies are touching ground, trying to assimilate and just hide in plain sight, and then people who were already here, their importance goes flatlined? Like, because the new guard is down, right? So now there's more people to have to contend with in tender, Tender. Treat them with tender, loving care. No, who? Just curious, because I'm seeing there's a lot of contender and new tender coming in. I just am feeling very flatlined in importance or in any effort in order to help us in whatever we are or were. By the way, on another program, they mentioned on Sunday morning to tie that level of journalism in with this level of journalism. They mentioned a Dutch, I believe she's from the Netherlands. I don't know, again, I don't want to misspeak their words of how they refer to themselves. Beautiful accent, by the way. Her English is beautiful accent. She said something about limitarian, Limitarian, on billionaires. Now, I know that because now there's like 3,000 billionaires. That nuovo rich has really like expanded. Now, if they're unsuccessful at their numbers of 3,000, then limitarianism is, I would think, a valid argument to start to scale back on that, since the other statistic was that the entire wealth at the top there's 50% of humans who have they make up like 50% on the bottom end. So that's an interesting, because then now you've got really rich, dangerous, powerful enemies at a number of 3,000 that you need to work with, or, I mean, they could come after you and make your life really, really difficult. So I thought they would be the best allies, theoretically, to use in some format if the planet totally gets off of its whatever. But again, I don't know how that level or area of real world exists, because I'm so far from it. But the only problem that I could foresee between what is said and what is heard is there's something called libertarian, and then there's limitarian. Two completely different philosophies, but the sounds could be confusing and could spark a whole totally different argument based on whoever is speaking or involved.
People of the people. And I just feel like it's one, hurdle after another that we all have to climb.
Chelsea, I saw you raise your hand.
I do agree that fundamentally for me, nothing has changed. I think that I am more skeptical now. My life has not improved. COVID has not improved. Biden has not, stuck to any of his promises. I don't think any
Now, I don't know what she knows. I don't know her insider information. I don't even know what's on Biden's agenda. I don't get a paper copy. They don't send a mailing through the United States Post Office or the federal, whatever is involved. But like President Joe Biden comes through like they are right now. Just like I don't know what this woman does for a living, for a career. I don't know where she lives. It's the same thing with President Joe Biden in the White House at the moment. I don't hear what's on his agenda. I don't hear the policies. I don't hear anything. It does not come through on the television. In fact, his 2 hour whatever that I heard through the grapevine was he spoke on was not even broadcast on any of the main network channels in around here. Just as there are other precedents, but we have our one that we're supposed to look to for guidance, which I would, as the teacher of whatever around here. So I don't know what her expectation was of what she heard President Joe Biden was supposed to be doing over this last year. I had no expectations because I had heard nothing.
anyone in Washington is really for working people.
I don't know the platform he ran on either.
Clear this year.
That point on working people, there has been at least $2 trillion pumped into the economy. There have been child care tax credits. When President Biden took office, he sent out those $1,400 checks. There's been all this money pumped in with the intention of helping working people. Are you saying it just hasn't made a difference in your life?
Certainly not in.
Now, this is another thing. She, in the middle, a journalist in the know with some close to Washington, D.C. area, she is saying that they pumped in all this money. They have all these jobs. My question is, are these jobs on paper that they just speak about or push paper around, but like there's no real evidence that new jobs were actually created? Were these just hypothetical positions, but were already designated and just handed straight to whoever qualified for them? I'm just curious because in the real world where I am being held like at this level of nothingness, the prospect of getting one of these jobs, I mean, it is like hitting the lottery. Is Publisher Clearinghouse really going to come to the door and say, we want to hire you? I don't know.
In my life personally.
Sandy, do you feel that way? I mean, I'm looking at a $300 tax credit per month for each child. The $1,400 check that President Biden handed out. I'm looking at all these lists of things that
I don't know if these are other states. Is this relevant to New York?
People.
It says a nation. Again,
it's
confusing.
This hasn't made a difference in your life?
It really hasn't made a difference at all, at least in my life. Sure, it may have helped some people temporarily, but ultimately, what everything's caused with all this money pumped into the economy, it's caused inflation.
Well, economists would tell you a lot of that has to do with just the shocks from the pandemic. If you got a shot, if you went out and got the vaccine because it would help the economy, you know, is that an effective selling point for you?
Now, is that even legal?
Telling you you're going to get sick or not?
You can't have a job unless you're vaccinated, and we give you a bioengineered product, which we're not giving you the results of how it's going to affect you negatively or not.
In the past year.
That sounds like biomedical
All of you are
ethics
saying,
failed.
even though the jobs picture is brighter, even though the direction of the economy and recovery is happening, are you all concerned about rising prices and inflation?
I go to the grocery store now. I'm paying.
They
double
think
the
of
amount
that
I was paying.
Phrase, the words glued together, as something totally different
Everything's gone
than
up.
what I've mentioned on this, whatever.
My granddaughter loves bacon, by the way, and I can barely afford bacon.
And whose whose fault do you think that is? I mean, it's the Federal
Now
Reserve
that's
that
a
controls
key
interest
op
rates.
phrase,
It's their
but
job
I
to
don't think that
control
that's a truth.
inflation. Do you blame the
Because bacon's
president?
not that
Do you blame the
expensive.
central bankers? Or do you blame, just Congress?
I know the Federal Reserve is talking about increasing the interest rate, but I think it's a combination. Congress is worthless. You don't even want me to start on Congress.
I actually do, because this is one of the things. In President Biden's first year, one of the things they say they are most proud of is this historic investment in infrastructure and the fact they got Republicans and Democrats to sign on to it. Even with that, you still say they're worthless.
I do, because there's so much more that needs to be done.
Like what? What do you need?
I need for the price of bacon to go down. How about that? I need for the government to stop spending so much money on things that are worthless.
Like what?
That are not going to benefit the people. I mean, they're sending out N95 masks, to cover people's faces. Somebody's making it, and somebody's making money off of that. That to me
Heard
that's
that
crazy.
before.
They're also sending out COVID tests for people to do COVID testing at home. Waste of money.
The administration would say these are the things that will help keep the economy going.
My whole thing
because then
is
you
that
won't have
genetic
to
tests,
stay
or
home
is
if you don't
that
catch
they really
COVID.
care
It takes
about
12
the
days
virus?
to get the test in the mail, another 12 days to get your results. That's 24 days.
Well, these at-home tests
Doesn't sound like
are
it's
supposed to be
virus
quick, just
like
few minutes.
related.
Here's what's wrong with our administration. They, like she was saying, here you are sending all these tests, sending the masks. So I'm going to put more money into this economy. I'm going to keep spending more money, and it's going to fix everything. No, inflation's going to hit 8-9%. We're going to be back to Jimmy Carter, and we know what happened to Jimmy Carter. You can't keep doing that. I almost feel like the administration came in and said, you know what, we're going to do everything opposite of what Trump did.
There will be more of our Listening to America segment Monday on our CBS News streaming network during Red and Blue. And the full
was an
conversation will be on our
interesting-
website at facethenation.com.
That was an interesting observance that he feels that everything that Trump was able to lay as tracker foundation was completely reversed after Trump inherited whatever off of a dangerous 8-year situation that the television doesn't even mention as whatever. It's star 1978, star 8378, Nicole Cattaruzza. It is Earth, solar system, Milky Way, universe, galaxy is broken. It's Bayside Station, Bayside, New York, 11361. I'm going to try to pull up the Sunday morning at the moment. Now, this is what I call a polished broadcast. They've got some form of professionalism in journalism, whatever. And I know the trumpet is important. The trumpet is an instrument. That's all I'm going to say.
Good morning. I'm Jane Pauley, and this is Sunday Morning.
Now, these are the
rich
headlines,
are
just so you have
different
the
from
right
you and me,
episode.
wrote F. Scott Fitzgerald. For one thing, they've got a lot more money, and there are a lot more of them these days. There are nearly 3,000 billionaires around the world. That kind of money has some people asking, should there be a limit to how much wealth one person can acquire? Mark Whitaker asks the billion-dollar question.
One of my questions, follow-up to that, is as a smaller population, if dire planetary consequences were happening and affecting large area populations, would those 3,000 candidates or people be more successful in actually accomplishing one goal. That right there is the most important thing, because why would you pool and listen to a smaller population? I mean, again, that goes back to Celestial, and this is an age-old question based on so many factors, but it is making sure that you have a populace to stand up and back what needs to be done, which is not always the most popular choice.
I think Disneyland is an incredible gift to this country and to this world.
As an heir
Now
to
she's
an
an
empire,
heiress. I've never even
Abigail
heard of her
Disney
before.
has seen big money up close, and she doesn't like it.
I really believe that money ruins people.
It's one thing to be wealthy, but does anyone really need $1 billion?
We're going to build a road to space.
Or if you're Jeff Bezos, nearly $200 billion?
Here, Ken.
Coming up on Sunday morning.
Then it goes into people are banking on him, because after a certain quantifiable monetary amount, they start accumulating wealth at such an exponent that it almost becomes that these billion-dollar faces become banking pawns all by themselves, making them a target, but making them a nice feature, making them a nice populace to bounce ideas off of, and whatever, in the privilege. I mean, but again, that goes off of old money principles. The nouveau riche is, I don't know, I mean, I think that's where they coined the term the filthy rich, the old world trying to purge the new world of entering that arena if they don't meet certain criteria. I've heard that before, postulated somewhere between here and there.
Our
Not with
Mochaga
my mother
is
and
just
father,
back
and not
from
with my
spending
children,
time
might I
with
add.
Tony and Emmy Award winner Christine Baranski. Turns out she's an actor passionate about her craft and her hometown.
I'm going to just...
Christine Baranski first.
I don't really know of her. I've just found out about her, but she goes to
magazine,
the Gilded something or other. I just saw a piece for. Oh, and this I've never seen.
Architectural Digest.
Architectural Digest I've never seen, and I've also never watched Robin Leach's Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous. It used to air on the rabbit ear channels. I don't remember on what day or what it backed, but I've heard the theme. I've heard his iconic voice. I've walked through a room where they were doing like a helicopter look at some kind of estate, but tracking that level of human and knowing the names and where they lived and things, I was not in that zone at that time, in somewhere in the 80s or 90s. Architectural Digest, they make a comment about the rich and famous and getting to know who lives where and whatever. Again, more stuff I don't follow. I just know my planet was taken from me, like my rock, my family member, my forever family member, and I don't know why in cosmological and astrological importance why it was never corrected. I don't know how the formula got so warped geospatially. Hang on a second. Now, this was a face that they put on this morning. I've never seen this gentleman's face before. I don't have his name up, but he was on Face the Nation. What is significant is in the background, it shows this geometric shape that actually was on that piece in Top Gun. And this is the other thing that he displays with Top Gun that I had seen yesterday for the first time when I was sitting in that one moment of pausing the television to make a mention of the men that were in that type of learning, whatever. They're not in my streets. They're not in my streets. There's no office I can walk to and knock on the door and say something's off. I don't know what they call themselves. Lynn and Lou don't know what facility. So I only have little seeds or nuggets of information to even come up with a linguistical word to construct what is missing out of my path as best I can. But again, is it really reliable linguistical prowess or acceptable, or is it going to tick someone off if it sounds like something else that may have been whatever? I'm not quite sure. So it's *1978 *8378 Nicole Cattaruzza.